Imagine strolling into your local dealership and, with a single decision, knocking thousands of pounds off the cost of your next car. Picture a future where the biggest barrier to owning a cutting-edge electric vehicle, the steep price tag, is suddenly swept away by a government grant. It sounds almost too good to be true, like something out of a motoring fantasy.
But in the United Kingdom, this is rapidly becoming reality. The government has just unveiled a bold new scheme, setting aside a staggering £650 million to turbocharge the nation's switch to electric vehicles. But as with all things that appear too good to be true, there's a catch, one with the potential to reshape the entire British car market, for better or worse. Today, we peel back the layers of this headline-grabbing grant. Is it a golden ticket, opening the door to cleaner, cheaper driving for millions? Or is it a Trojan horse, luring buyers with short-term savings but hiding long-term risks and market shocks? Stick around, because whether you're a driver, a car buyer, or simply curious about the future of transport and technology, the answer could impact you and the roads you drive on sooner than you think.
Let's set the scene. Over the past decade, electric vehicles, or EVs, have held out the promise of a cleaner, quieter, and more intelligent future for British motorists. Visionaries imagined city streets free from smog, the gentle hum of electric motors replacing the roar of engines, and a new generation of smart vehicles connected to the grid. But for countless would-be buyers, the dream has collided with a harsh reality. High sticker prices that put electric cars out of reach for all but the most committed or affluent early adopters. Enter the government's latest move, a massive £650 million investment to make electric cars more accessible than ever before. The headline numbers are eye-catching. Up to £3,750 off the price of a new battery electric vehicle, as long as the car costs no more than £37,000. That's not just a nudge in the right direction, it's a powerful shove. The grant, which will run until the end of the 2028 to 2029 financial year, is designed to transform the market, making EVs a realistic option for mainstream British families and individuals. It's a familiar playbook. Just a few years ago, the government's plug-in car grant offered similar support, helping thousands make the leap to electric. But in 2022, that scheme was abruptly axed, leaving a vacuum in the market.
Since then, the surge in private electric car sales has sputtered. In fact, fewer than 1 in 5 new fully electric cars sold this year have gone to private buyers. A stark contrast to the fleet sector, where companies and organizations have continued to drive up demand. Meanwhile, the government's ambitions remain sky-high. They want 28% of all new car sales to be fully electric by the end of this year. But right now, the market is falling short, with only about 22% of sales hitting that mark. The gap between aspiration and reality is growing, and the pressure is on. Industry leaders are watching closely. Mike Hawes, chief executive of the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, put it plainly. The return of government support for the purchase of EVs is a clear signal to consumers that now is the time to switch. The hope is that this grant, combined with the momentum of the global green revolution, will not just nudge the market, but spark a transformation. By the end of the decade, the target is nothing short of revolutionary: to turn today's 1 in 4 share of electric vehicle sales into 4 in 5. A leap on par with the transition from horses and carts to motor cars more than a century ago.
But as with all sweeping changes, there are complications, and some are already flashing red. The grant may sound generous, but hidden beneath the surface are risks that could upend the market in unexpected ways. The biggest threat? The fragile, volatile world of used electric cars. In the last 3 years, the average price of a used EV in the United Kingdom has collapsed by a jaw-dropping 46%. That's more than double the 19% drop seen for traditional petrol and diesel vehicles over the same period. The reasons are complex but powerful. New EVs are flooding the market, prices are being slashed to hit grant thresholds, and there's little to no support for buyers in the second-hand markets. The result? Used electric cars are losing value at a pace the industry has rarely seen.
Toby Poston, head of the British Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association, has sounded the alarm. Stimulating new EV registrations without supporting the used market risks, creating an even greater supply and demand imbalance, putting even more pressure on fast-deflating second-hand values. The consequences are not limited to car owners. Leasing companies and lenders, who have banked on vehicles retaining their value, now face the prospect of hundreds of millions of pounds in losses. For everyday drivers, the fear is that the dream of affordable, green motoring could morph into a nightmare of rapid depreciation and unexpected costs. Let's dig deeper into why the used market matters so much. In most car markets, the secondhand sector is the engine that keeps things moving. Affordable. Nearly new cars provide an entry point for millions of drivers who can't or won't pay full price for a showroom-fresh vehicle. When used values collapse, it doesn't just hurt sellers. It ripples through the entire financing system. Monthly payments for new car leases and loans are calculated based on expected resale values. If those values plummet, so do the economics of ownership. Suddenly, the cost of getting into a new EV could climb again, as lenders raise rates to cover their risks, erasing much of the grant's benefit. And there's another twist. The new grant is more than a simple discount. It comes with strings attached. To qualify for the full £3,750, manufacturers must meet strict sustainability standards. Their cars must not only be fully electric and cost less than £37,000, but the car makers themselves must have signed up to verified science-based targets for reducing carbon emissions and have embedded low carbon footprints into their manufacturing processes. Vehicles from companies that fail to meet these criteria will only qualify for a reduced grant, up to £1,500, or nothing at all. This detail sets the stage for a green technology arms race among car brands. Global players are now incentivized to clean up their acts, not just to build electric cars, but to ensure their entire supply chains are as green as possible. That's a huge shift and a potential win for the environment. But it also means that British factories, like the one producing the Nissan Leaf, may find themselves sidelined from the most generous grants if they cannot meet these rigorous standards. It's an irony not lost on industry insiders. A scheme meant to boost British jobs could, in some cases, leave homegrown models out in the cold. So what does all this mean for you, the everyday driver, the cautious car buyer, or the tech enthusiast watching from the sidelines? Let's break it down. First, the practical benefits are real. For anyone eyeing an electric vehicle priced under £37,000 from a manufacturer that ticks all the green boxes, the grant will be automatically applied at the dealership. There's no need for extra forms or bureaucratic hurdles. It's as simple as choosing your car and driving it home with thousands shaved off the price. This move is designed to make the transition to electric as seamless as possible, removing friction from the buying process. But it pays to be savvy. If you're considering trading in your existing EV or venturing into the used market for the first time, watch the trends closely. The volatility in used electric car values is unprecedented, with nearly new models sometimes losing value far faster than their petrol or diesel counterparts. Industry expert Philip Nothard warns, the current performance of nearly new EVs in the used market is much lower than we would anticipate. This means that a car you buy today could be worth dramatically less in just a year or two. An unsettling prospect for anyone used to traditional patterns of depreciation. For those leasing an EV, pay special attention to your contract's fine print, especially the clauses around end-of-lease values. As used prices fall, leasing companies may adjust their terms, increasing monthly payments or imposing new fees at the end of your agreement to recoup their own losses. Still, the opportunity is significant. Edmund King, president of the AWA, is urging drivers to take full advantage of this offer. For first-time buyers, the grant could be the push needed to step into the future. But a word of caution, not all electric cars or brands will qualify for the highest grant. Before you buy, do your homework. Check which manufacturers have signed up to the government's strict environmental benchmarks. Those are the brands set to benefit most, and so are their customers. Let's zoom out for a moment. What are the bigger, long-term consequences of this policy? On one hand, if the grant works as intended, it could help the United Kingdom leapfrog into a leadership position in the burgeoning global EV market. More affordable cars mean more buyers, which in turn drives competition, innovation, and economies of scale. As more electric vehicles hit the roads, manufacturers are expected to ramp up research and development, pushing driving ranges higher, charging times lower, and costs down even further. By the end of the decade, industry leaders are predicting a market where as many as 4 in every 5 new cars sold are fully electric, a transformation that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. But on the other hand, the risks are real and growing. As new EV sales accelerate, the market could be flooded with trade-ins, just as used electric car prices are crashing. Toby Poston's warning is blunt. Rampant depreciation already has red warning lights flashing. If the secondhand market continues to spiral downward, confidence in electric vehicles as a smart investment could erode.
slowing adoption and undermining the very policy designed to accelerate it.
There are even broader implications. The grant is only available for cars costing £37,000 or less, leaving higher-end models out in the cold. That means the so-called expensive car supplement, an additional annual fee of £425 for 5 years on cars priced above £40,000, remains in play. This creates a powerful incentive for manufacturers to trim model prices to just below the threshold, potentially leading to cost-cutting in features or quality. Already, industry insiders are watching closely as car makers adjust their pricing strategies, seeking to maximize grant eligibility while maintaining profitability. And what about the bigger economic picture? The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders estimates that discounts and incentives on electric vehicles will cost car makers in the region of £4 billion in 2024 alone. That is a colossal sum, and it highlights the scale of transformation underway in the automotive industry. But it also raises questions. Will manufacturers be able to sustain these losses as they chase market share, or will the costs eventually be passed on to consumers in other ways? Higher prices elsewhere, reduced model choices, or slower innovation? Let's not overlook the global context. The United Kingdom is not alone in its push for electrification. Across Europe, governments are rolling out their own incentive schemes, each with unique quirks and challenges. In Germany, for example, generous EV subsidies have driven record sales, but sudden policy changes have also triggered market instability. In Norway, a country often hailed as the poster child for electric adoption, tax breaks and incentives have pushed EV market share to more than 80%, but not without side effects, such as grid strain and questions about long-term sustainability. The UK's approach, with its focus on sustainability benchmarks and targeted price caps, seeks to learn from these examples while carving its own path. Yet, while these grand strategies play out, the experience of ordinary drivers remains front and center. For many, the new grant will make electric motoring more accessible, reducing upfront costs and putting advanced technology within reach. For others, especially those who recently bought an EV at a higher price, or who find themselves holding a car that's rapidly losing value, the policy may feel like a double-edged sword. So what should you do if you're in the market for a new car or considering a switch to electric? First, research the list of qualifying models. The government is expected to publish this soon, and manufacturers are already scrambling to get their vehicles approved. If you're set on a particular make or model, check whether the company has committed to the necessary sustainability targets. This will determine whether you qualify for the full grant or a lower amount. Second, if you're considering a used EV, tread carefully. The market is in flux, and prices are volatile. Look for deals, but be aware of the risks. If you're leasing, check whether your agreement protects you against unexpected drops in value at the end of your term. Third, stay informed. The electric vehicle market is evolving rapidly, and today's best advice may be outdated within months. Subscribe to trusted channels, read expert reviews, and keep an eye on policy updates, especially as the government considers additional measures to stabilize the used market. There's growing speculation that targeted incentives, or even government-backed guarantees, could be introduced to prop up second-hand EV values in the near future. Finally, remember that the transition to electric vehicles is about more than just saving money. It's a milestone in the journey toward a cleaner, more sustainable future. Every EV on the road helps to cut emissions, reduce noise, and push the industry closer to the tipping point where electric becomes the new normal. But there are hurdles still to clear. Supply chains for batteries and critical minerals remain under strain, raising questions about ethical sourcing and long-term availability. Charging infrastructure, while expanding, is not yet universal, especially in rural areas or for drivers without off-street parking. Technological advances are coming fast, but so too is the risk of obsolescence, as each new model leapfrogs the last in range, features, and price. And with more than 1.5 million fully electric cars expected on British roads by June of next year, the challenge of scaling up support services, maintenance, and grid capacity is only growing. Yet, despite these challenges, the direction of travel is clear. The government's new grant is a bold bet on the future, a signal that electric vehicles are no longer a niche luxury, but an essential part of the United Kingdom's economic and environmental strategy for the 21st century. Before you rush to the showroom, here's a secret that's not making the headlines. Experts suggest the UK's used EV market may soon require its own dedicated support. Without new incentives or protections for second-hand buyers, there's a real risk that the next generation of EV adopters could be left facing wild price swings and unexpected costs. The government is watching closely,
and industry insiders are pushing for solutions, such as extended warranties, guaranteed buybacks, or even tax breaks for used electric vehicles. So as we stand at this crossroads, the big question remains: is the government's new grant a genuine game changer, or just another twist in the long and winding road toward mass electric adoption? Will it lead to a golden age of clean, affordable motoring, or simply shift the challenges around, creating new winners and losers as the market evolves? Now it's your turn. What do you think? Have you seen eye-opening deals on used electric cars in your area? Are you planning to take advantage of the new grant? Or does the uncertainty in the used market give you pause? Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for the latest analysis on the trends shaping our economic and technological future. Together, let's drive the conversation forward.